This video lesson is about linear transformations. In other words, what happens when we take one graph of an equation and we change it a little bit and we want to see how it transforms. Okay, so let's go ahead and read this. This says to determine the effects on the graph of the parent function f of x equals x when f of x is replaced with a f of x or f of x plus d, or f of x minus c, f of bx for specific values of a, b, c, and d. Now that sounds like a lot of words, and it is, and it sounds confusing. But we are going to learn it. All right, we're going to be using this diagram here. This says f of x equals, and then negative m times x minus x1 plus y1. Okay, so the parent function here is f of x equals x. All right, well, what happens to our parent function when we add a number here that's, say, greater than 1? Or what happens when we add a number that is less than 1? You can see here, greater 1 is steeper, less than 1 is shallow or less steep. You can see here when we add a negative or we change it, if it was positive, we make it negative, it reflects across the y-axis. Or if it was negative and we change it to positive, it will, again, reflect the other direction across the y-axis. Okay, what happens if inside this parenthesis we add or subtract a number? If we add a number, it actually shifts to the left, which seems opposite. And if we subtract a number, it actually shifts to the right. All right, and then outside of the parentheses, if we add a number, add is going to shift it up, which would make sense, and subtracting a number will shift it down. All right, so let's just look at some diagrams. Another way of saying this is really just this. We are going to describe how the graph transforms from the first one to the second one. All right, and again, this is our parent function, f of x equals x, and you could think of that as just y equals x. Y equals x. All right. Okay. So on this slide here, what I've done is I've basically taken a snip or a picture of the decimals.com that we use, and what I've done here is I'm just showing you that the parent function f of x equals x, or another way of writing that, y equals x, just simply looks like this line here. Okay, this is a slope of 1 because that's understood to be 1, y equals 1x. So that's what that slope looks like. All right, now on this diagram, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So we have our parent function, f of x equals x or y equals x, or we could call this the original. It's going to be the parent function or whatever. This is our first graph. Then we put a 2 right here in front of the x. Well, what does that do to it? Or what if we put a fraction, okay? So you need to understand, how does it transform or how does it change when we put a number here that's greater than 1, or we put a number that's actually less than 1 or greater than 0. It's a fraction, okay? Well, so let's zoom back in and take a look at the graphs. So you will see, here's the parent function in red. When we add that 2 greater than 1, our graph actually gets what we call, it gets steeper, okay? It's steeper. If it is a fraction, less than 1 or greater than 0, it actually gets less steep, or we could call it more shallow, okay? So those are the things that we need to know. It gets steeper when it's a number greater than 1. If it is a fraction, then it is less steep, or we could call that shallow, or that kind of thing, okay? And again, what we saw here is that the m, okay, let me zoom in here. The m determines the m, if it's greater than 1, it's more steep, and if it's less than 1 but greater than 0, then it is more, it's shallow, or it's less steep. All right, let's move on. Okay, so in this transformation, all we're doing here is we're taking the original function, another word, or what we call parent function, and we're adding a negative. Well, what we do with that is we say that it reflects across the y-axis when you put a negative. So you can see in this one here, I'll zoom back out, we have the original function here, and then it reflects across the y-axis, and now you see that it is this negative slope. All right, so again, just to make sure we know, when we add that negative, what is happening is we are reflecting across the y-axis. Okay, let's take a look at these two. And again, I need to zoom in. Okay, so we're going to say the original function or the parent function is y equals 2x. Okay, 2x. I put the x in parentheses, but it's basically y equals 2x. Well, then in here, I put y equals 2x, and then I put plus 3. What happens when I do plus 3 here? Okay, well, if we zoom in and go look at this, at the graph, you can see that the original is here, and it crosses at 0, 0. Well, the new one, the transformation, it's gone up 3 units. So this plus 3, okay, transforms it up 3 units. Okay, so a positive or a plus sign would shift it up 2 units. What would happen if I used, or what if my equation had been y equals 2x minus 4? Okay, well then it would have shifted down 2 units, and it would have looked more like, it would have looked like this. Okay, it would have gone, it would have gone from the original here 0, and it would have gone down 1, 2, 3, 4 units because of the minus 4. Okay, so again, just to make sure we're all on the same page here, when we add a number, it shifts it up. So plus shifts up, and then minus would shift down. And this, the number that I'm talking about here is this number right here. Okay, so when we're outside the parentheses and we add a number, it shifts it up. When we subtract a number, it shifts it down. All right, and then let's take a look at this one. I'm going to zoom in again just real quick so to make sure that you can see it. For this one, the parent function is y equals 2x, and then inside the parentheses, I'm adding a number or I'm subtracting a number. So when you see it inside the parentheses, it actually does the opposite. Okay, so when we look back, our original graph is blue, and then we have a purple, and then the black graph. So let's take a look here. You'll notice with the purple one, when we added 4 inside of the parentheses, it actually shifted it to the left 4 units. All right, it's kind of the opposite of what we would think, but a plus shifts it left. Okay. And then the other one, when I subtracted 2 inside the parentheses, it actually shifted it to the right 2 units. So again, inside the parentheses, it's a little bit, it's opposite of what you would think would happen, okay? So, and again, just to make sure we know, I'm talking about this part right here where we add or subtract a number inside the parentheses. All right. And then this is a parent function of what we call a quadratic function, okay? That's where we have x squared, all right? So you will see that when we have an x squared, it creates this parabola, okay? This is a quadratic function. Now, we're primarily working with linear functions, but I want to show you some of the same things that happen, some of the same transformations. So here I've made it a negative, okay? That's a little different. Instead of reflecting across the y-axis, it reflects across the x-axis. So this is our original blue, red here. It reflects across the x-axis, all right? So you can see that it's now down here, all right? And then same thing here, inside the parentheses, notice I subtracted 3. That's gonna shift it to the right 3 units. So you can see the green one has gone to the right 3 units because we subtracted this 3. It's kind of opposite, but again, that is how that works when it's inside the parentheses, okay? All right, And then on this one here, I've taken the parent function x squared and I've added 2. That's where it shifts it up 2 units. Okay, same thing, shifts it up 2 units. And then on this last one, well, I've done a few things on this last one. I've added 5 inside the parentheses, so it shifted it to the left 5 units. Remember, it's opposite when we're inside the parentheses. And then there's also this 3 out here. Well, that actually compressed it, all right, and it made it the U shape a little. It's more compressed, okay. But that one we're not as concerned about. I'm more make sure you understand the shift right or left and the shift up or down and the reflect across the x-axis or the y-axis. All right, so that is that's a look at transformations. I know it's a lot, okay? You're going to have some problems to practice today in your assignment. Use those videos to help as we work with transformations.